Good afternoon and welcome to the Corporation of the Town of Kirkland Lake meeting of council held February the 2nd, 2016. Would you start with a moment of silence, please? Thank you. It was moved by Councillor Mino and seconded by Councillor Morgan that Council approves the agenda for its regular meeting of February 2nd, 2016 as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? None declared. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming George Ogilvie, President and Chief Executive Officer of Kirkland Lake Gold. Also with George is Bob McDonald, who is the General Mine Manager, and also accompanying is Grant Havelselrud, and Grant is the Regional Human Resource Manager. So we certainly would like to welcome the three of you to Council Chambers. We're delighted to have you, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Councilman. Thank you for the opportunity to present a presentation today on Kirkland Lake Gold. I'm just going to bring this up on the screen so we can work from this. So obviously Kirkland Lake recently announced the acquisition of St. Andrew Goldfields. I recently just came back from the operations after meeting with some 450 employees over the course of the last 5 or 6 days. We believe this deal for Kirkland Lake and the employees of St. Andrew is going to add tremendous value. I think once the deal is now complete, you'll see that going forward our annual production will be looking at somewhere between 260 and 310,000 ounces of annual gold production. So that's quite considerable. You'll have already have seen that since we closed the deal, our market cap as a company has now moved up from some $380 million. Today it's now approaching $580 million. So the market and the street is beginning to recognize that we're obviously moving up. For me, the deal as well, what it does now is it brings in 3 additional producing assets that we believe with investment in those assets should give us a life of mine there within those assets of an additional 10 years. So I think that's great news. And of course, they have a centrally located mill, which is very close to our own mill, some 80-odd kilometers away. So there's going to be some tremendous synergies there between these operations with only 80 kilometers between them. We had closed out year-end with $93.8 million cash in the bank. We haven't completely completed all the payments after the acquisition, but certainly in the next week, St. Andrew will be bringing monies to the table, which therefore is going to strengthen our cash position, and it should be close to $110 million when all is said and done. So that's quite significant. Both companies right now are projecting for this year profitability and adding net free cash flow to the balance sheet. We're in the process of actually now doing a consolidated operating and capital budget that we hope to have completed by the end of March, and we'll put those results out to the market in early April. I think most of the initial synergies and labour savings will come from the head office. Obviously, we don't need 2 CEOs or 2 CFOs within the company, and there's going to be some back office staff there, sadly, in Toronto, that as we go forward will not have their employment. But certainly I think it makes us stronger going forward as a company. The other thing that we're seeing now that we have 4 producing mines with 2 central located mills is we've already been approached by a couple of the larger banks to actually look at increasing our debt and credit facilities. That was something that I tried to address in the middle of last year, but now obviously with having 4 producing mines and a strong growth profile going forward, suddenly the company as a whole is being de-risked, and I think we're going to see in the second half of this year access to additional capital at a much lower cost of capital going forward. So that's going to give us a big war chest at some juncture moving into 2017 if we want to continue to grow the company. The other thing that's actually happening today is St. Andrew as a company only had one analyst actually covering them. Today we had 8 analysts at site touring the operations. They're back again tomorrow, and next week we actually have another group of 8 to 10 analysts coming in. So they'll be going back to their offices in Toronto, Boston, New York, London and the UK in the next couple of weeks and initiating or putting out updated analyst notes. So I think when that gets out there and it filters through the investment and the financial markets, I think you're going to see the company coming under the spotlight for all the right reasons, and I think that's going to add further impetus to the story as an investment case as we go forward. And of course, right now we're all benefiting from the weak Canadian dollar. We're selling our gold in Canadian dollars, yet 90% of our costs are in Canadian dollars. So the Canadian gold price right now we've seen is in and around 1,550 Canadian dollars an ounce, so that's helping. I think it's important, however, we've tried to get a message to all our managers and employees that yes, let's take advantage of the weak Canadian dollar at the moment, but we know the mining industry is very cyclical. We can't control the gold price nor the foreign exchange rates, so we've got to use this 12 to 24 months where I think we'll see a weak Canadian dollar to further, drive down our costs, look for productivity and efficiency gains so that we can actually run our business under $1,100 an ounce Canadian, so that when it turns, we can still make money and we don't go from being bearish to bullish and vice versa. So we're showing a map here of the Ontario, and if we think about the reserve and resources now as a pro forma company, Kirkland Lake currently has 1.5 million ounces of 19.2 grams per ton of reserves, which gives us a 7-year to 8-year mine life. We're now adding an additional 800,000 ounces of reserves, which for St. Andrew would be about an 8-year mine life. The grade of those reserves is in and around 5 grams. But overall now we're increasing the reserves to 2.3 million ounces, which is a 53% increase. The other key point to note is we have 2 million ounces of resources at 16.8 grams, and they have some 2.7 million ounces of resources, again sort of in and around 5 grams. So now the resources go to 4.7 million ounces, which is obviously in excess of 100% increase in resources. Combined, that's 7 million ounces of reserve and resources now at a weighted average head grade of above 10 grams. So the grade is obviously very, very compelling. The slide I'm showing here actually is company sourced information, but it shows the top 9 gold mines in the world by reserve grade. And you can see that the Macassa mine is number 1 in the world. These are mines that have reserves in excess of 1 million ounces of gold and are actually in production as we speak today. It's interesting that the other 8 mines following the Macassa mine are all owned by blue chip mining companies. And I'm sure you can see there as well that conducting business in Indonesia, South Africa and Russia is probably not the safest jurisdictions in the world today. So we believe that certainly the US and Canada is the place to be conducting our business, and certainly there's no safer jurisdiction within Canada than Northern Ontario. I'm showing here the production profile for the company for the last 3 years, which is shown in gold, and the projection going forward in the blue bars. Last year was a stub year for us. We changed our fiscal year from May 1st, that used to be May 1st to April 30th. We've now changed it starting January the 1st, which is actually good in a sense because St. Andrew had their fiscal year calendar year as well. So it actually makes things a lot easier when it comes to reporting and looking at the financials. This year at the Macassa mine, we're projecting 170,000 ounces of production. which would have been up from fiscal 2015, where we did 155,000 ounces. And we see that production profile growing over the next 3 years as we go deeper into one of the zones at the mine known as the South Mine Complex, where grades just naturally increase with depth. We believe that that will drive the ounces up over the next 3 years. We're very excited about the St. Andrew assets. They have 120 kilometres of strike length on the Porcupine-Dester Fault. If we think about that fault system, in Kirkland Lake over the last 100 years, there's been in excess of 26 million ounces of gold actually mined from this camp. The Porcupine-Dester Fault has produced in excess of 75 million ounces of gold. So 3 times the amount of gold that has come out of that fault system than what's actually come out of Kirkland Lake. So as a company now, we're sitting on a land package that overall has over 100 million ounces of gold that's been produced over 100 years. So I think we have one of the most exciting and prolific land packages, not just in Canada, but in the world, that's available now for us to actually explore. So the Holt mine that we've acquired is a 1,200 ton a day operation. Their grade is just under 5 grams, and on an annual basis they do about 70,000 ounces of gold production a year. Taylor is a new mine that just came into production last year in November. They have a grade of just about 6.3 grams per ton, and they anticipate doing between 5 to 600 tons a day. That makes that mine a 30 to 40,000 ounce producer. Holloway is a mine that really we want to invest in this year with respect to diamond drilling underground to try and increase the reserves. At the moment, they only have 40,000 ounces there, which is about 2 years remaining in their life of mine. However, if you went back 3 or 4 years ago, you'd have seen the same scenario. So there's been limited investment in capital development and exploration and diamond drilling there, and that's something that we want to try and improve upon to increase the life of mine there. Typically, Holloway is doing about 20,000 ounces of annual production. So if you were to add all of that up, you can see that this year's St. Andrew assets should be providing somewhere around 120,000 ounces of annual production, which when coupled to the Macassa mine of 170, it's 290,000 ounces. That's why we gave a guidance of 260 up to 310 when we initially announced the deal in November. But as I said, we'll come out to the market in early April with more definitive, detailed plans. Back to Kirkland Lake, this is a longitudinal section of the entire camp. You can see the 7 mines that have been in production there. Kirkland Lake actually owns 5 of those former producing 7 mines, so that's Wright Hargreaves, Lakeshore Tech, Kirkland Lake, and also Kirkland Minerals and Macassa mine. So from those 5 mines, 22,000 ounces, 22 million ounces of gold has actually been produced. You'll see now that last year we invested $5 million in a regional exploration campaign. We've actually set up drills on Kirkland Minerals and also on Tech Hughes. We've drilled these holes down between 6,500 feet. Every hole has hit mineralization in the ground, ranging from 6 grams per ton up to 3,200 grams per ton, over several inches to several feet in thickness. So it's fairly typical of what we're seeing in the Macassa mine, super high grade, but very narrow veins. The plan this year is now to invest an additional $7.5 million drilling into that zone to try and see if we can expand it further and do some infill drilling. There's also some holes which are actually being drilled currently where we're intending to drill back north to drill under the historic 04 main break, which is the grey area that you actually see on that slide. The 04 main break was never cut off at depth. What actually chased them out was the low gold prices and the seismicity. So obviously technology has moved on, and with engineering standards and principles, we're able to better design the stopes and mine them in a certain sequence that it can minimize the seismicity, and then we tightly fill them with paste fill, which means that they don't get a chance to bump on us. So I think it's a very exciting regional exploration program that we're putting in here. The overall vision here that we have is that currently right now, obviously, we only have one producing mine in Kirkland Lake. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we want to prove up a business case and generate enough reserve and resources so that in 5 to 10 years' time, ideally we'd like to see a second producing mine in Kirkland Lake. But we've got to start that process now, and it's going to take significant dollars in investment in exploration to prove that up over the next 2 to 3 years. A little bit about the share capital structure of the company. So in doing this deal, it was an all-share transaction. We gave the St. Andrew shareholders 0.0906 Kirkland Lake shares for one St. Andrew share. But after the deal's concluded now, we still only have 114 million shares issued. And when you consider stock options, it's 119 million issued and fully diluted. So still a very tight share capital structure, which is important for our company. You can see the cash balance there of almost $94 million within Kirkland Lake. And as I said earlier, that should increase in the next several days as we pay the St. Andrew bills. It's my goal that by the middle of this year, we will have cash in the bank that matches the debt that we currently have on the balance sheet. We have $119 million in 2 convertible debentures, which are due. $65 million is due in June 2017, and another $55 million due in December of 2017. So although we're doing well and we're making money and we're increasing the cash balance, we still have this debt to deal with over the course of this year, but that's obviously an important objective for myself and the CFO. And if we can manage that debt, looking at paying off maybe half of that debt with our cash balance and then refinance a portion with a credit or a debt facility from one of the big banks at an extremely competitive rate, I think that puts us in a very strong position coming into 2017 with cash in the bank, significantly reduced debt levels, and growing cash position if we can continue to execute our operations. Plus, as I said, a war chest behind us to support further expansion if need be. You'll also see there that the market cap of the company, we had thought that it would be around $570 million. As of yesterday, it was $585 million. And I think that's without a re-rating. If we can do everything we said we're going to do in the first half of this year, there's a potential that the company gets a big re-rating in the second half of the year when we look at all the metrics when we compare ourselves to our peers. So the initial guidance we gave was 260 to 310. Cash costs, we're looking at 600 to 690 US dollars an ounce. That's essentially our operating costs. And then when we look at all-in sustaining costs, this is including sustaining capital development and exploration, we should be somewhere around 950 US dollars an ounce. So if you think about that and the gold price being $1,050 an ounce, that's $100 an ounce margin. If we were doing 280,000 ounces of annual production, that could be an additional $28 million that we can add to our cash position over the course of the next 12 months. So I think that's quite exciting. Main news flow to look out for is obviously we're concluding our stub year financials. They'll go out to the market March 10th. We're doing the consolidated budgets and those will go to the market the second week of April. At the same time, we'll announce updated guidance, and we're planning to do an investor day in April through Toronto. And our first quarter earnings as a consolidated company will come out May 16th. So I think we've got a lot of exciting news flow over the course of the next 5 months that if we can deliver on, I think is going to be extremely exciting for the employees, the shareholders, and all stakeholders in the community at large. A little bit about the key economic features of Kirkland Lake. Kirkland Lake contributed 6% of Ontario's gold production in fiscal 2014. That was generated by $173 million in revenue. Obviously, 99% of our jobs are in the north. With the St. Andrew assets coming into our company now, we will go from 945 employees at the end of December to somewhere around 1,400 employees in total within the company. So quite a large employer, obviously, in the area now. If you look there at where our distribution of our labour force comes from, obviously Kirkland Lake is number one with 64% of those 945 employees, followed by Timiskaming, Englehart, Sudbury, Quebec, and others as far as field as Timmins and North Bay. This is obviously some demographics that we'll be updating in the next month or so, with the 450 additional employees coming into the company. When we look at GDP contribution within Ontario, there was some $350 million contributed by Kirkland Lake Gold. $230 million of that was direct, and $125 million indirect contribution. So the mine is obviously a significant employer in Ontario and in Northern Ontario. And as we said, if we can execute on our exciting plans going forward, there's no reason why we wouldn't be an even larger contributor to the economy in the north. Obviously, for every dollar that we spend, that benefits suppliers in the Kirkland Lake area within 50 kilometres. Last year, we saw some $15.5 million given to suppliers for services. There was $6.8 million given to suppliers from Timmins, New Liskeard, and Valdoa, and some $12 million found its way to the Sudbury and the North Bay area. So $35 million in total, which is obviously fairly substantial. And we would expect that now obviously to increase with bringing in the St. Andrew assets. I'm happy to say that in the new year, as part of our corporate social responsibility, we donated $29,000 to the Kirkland Lake Hospital Foundation. That was in order to allow them to do a study into remodeling and increasing the number of beds in the intensive care unit, and also to assist in doing a study on looking at a CAT scan within the hospital itself. We expect that study to be completed towards the end of February. No doubt if it proves to be a good business case, they'll be looking for additional funding, and we believe that we certainly can assist them with a portion of those funds if they wanted to move ahead. And I think this is obviously now where the company is, getting on a sound financial solid basis. I think world-class companies invest in the community. It's certainly something that we want to do. We want to give back for employees, and obviously the hospital benefits their families, their loved ones, the children, and the community at large, which, as I said, is very important for us. And lastly, our vision a couple of years ago that we hit upon was to build a sustainable mining company that's recognized as a safe and responsible intermediate gold producer with quality assets in a safe jurisdiction. And we're going to do that by providing exceptional stakeholder value, by delivering operational and exploration excellence, through empowering our employees to act as owner-operators. And interesting that last year we put over 1,000 employees through a training course initially at the college and then the Heritage Centre. And this year we plan on doing the same and putting them through Module 2, which teaches them about running a business as an owner-operator. And of course, now that we've brought in the St. Andrew employees, they will go through Module 1 this year as well. So we're making significant investment in our employees as we move forward here. So that concludes our presentation, and I'd like to thank Council and the Chamber for the time today. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Any councillor comments, questions? Okay. Certainly, each time you've came to council, it's you're a bringer of good news. So thank you for that, and we're very pleased that this recent acquisition has made your company stronger, because a stronger Kirkland Gold means a stronger Kirkland Lake, and that's extremely important. We're very pleased to hear that regional exploration is is on your horizon, and because exploration is very important to our community for the suppliers and the workers and the drillers, and so very pleased. And with exploration, you could put another 20 years of life onto our camp here. You've mentioned your support to the hospital, which shows that, you know, Kirkland Gold is more than a company. You're becoming part of the community. We certainly thank you for your contribution and future contributions to the hospital. Healthcare is, I mean, there's nothing more important than healthcare here in the community, and we want to thank you for being such good corporate citizens in our community, and we look forward to more good news donations towards the community. We want to thank you for coming, and please don't be a stranger, and return again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We're just going to take a 2-minute break here, and okay, we have the acceptance of minutes and recommendations. It was moved by Councillor Morgan and seconded by Councillor Mino that council approves the minutes of the following meetings. Minutes of the Texcentennial Library Board held December 17th, 2015, and minutes of the regular meeting of council held January the 26th, 2016. All in favor? Thank you. Reports of municipal officers and communications. Bonnie, you're going to come up and speak on item 6.1.
Thank you. We have a request from the Kirkland gold miners to look at their room rental fees, and they've been asked if we could waive them for an additional 2 years. They've spent an extensive amount of money doing renovations in their dressing room, and this is something that we have done for other user groups in the past. So the revenue would be about $4,200 for the season based on square footage, and the recommendation is to waive that for an additional 2 years to help them recoup the dollars that they put in for the renovations.
Councillor Barker.
Bonnie, have they put in any reports with regards to how much they've actually spent in the repairs?
I believe they had a meeting with Tony and Nancy and discussed that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was identified that, they didn't give us the exact figure, but it would be in excess of $25,000.
Which they must leave there. Whenever renovations and improvements that they have made to the room, it's in the agreement that they must leave them there for future groups to use.
I believe in the past we've done this with like the Legion 87s and other groups.
Correct.
You know, because they're making an investment in our asset, aren't they? Any other comments? Okay, I have a resolution here. It was moved by Councillor Kiley and seconded by Councillor Mino that council approves the request from the Kirkland Lake Gold Miners to waive their room rental for 2 additional years effective January 2016. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, Bonnie?
The next one is something that we'd like to do for all of our different user groups that may have 20 or more people that would like to participate in using the fitness room. So what we'd like to be able to do to add some added value to the user fees that they pay is to waive the fitness room membership rates for the year that they are a user group in our facility. And this would be for groups of 20 or more individuals. So it's the teams or the sporting clubs that have large numbers, and it would be for those ages 16 to 20. So the teens that are able to use the fitness room on their own.
Councillor Barker.
Between the previous resolution and this, how is it going to impact 2016? I know we're running a pretty tight ship right now. How's it going to impact the numbers moving forward?
In terms of subsidy, is that what you mean for groups?
No, in terms of revenue and for budgeting purposes.
And also in terms of expense?
Yes.
Oh, yes, okay.
So for this, there's not an expense to the municipality because the fitness room has hours of operation and is open. I mean, there's an expense overall to be open, but there's not a direct cost. There's not a staffing fee or things like that. So there's not a cost to the municipality to waive a fee, and it would depend on how many user groups took advantage of this and how many people they would have. So it would be, per user group, it would probably be about, depending on the number of people, it could be maybe over $3,500 per user group to waive the fees.
Councillor Mino.
I like this idea. I support this. This is a good initiative to get people more on the health track, good health track and fitness level. And so if they take advantage of it, all the better for our community. It's going to create that much more fitness level, and perhaps it might have some good spin-off effect on the rest of the residents. And it's one of those good things. The other thing too is that I believe if this is only the fitness area,
Yes.
so if my memory serves me right, we're always trying to achieve that 50% sort of recovery thing. This is where one area where the fitness area does not cost us very much, so we don't need much recovery incentive or dollars to actually make it to break even. This is already
Correct.
in a high sort of revenue scheme, or pay by itself schemes,
Yes.
should I say. So yeah, I like the social side of this. This is what I support most.
Okay, yes, I think it's important that we support our user groups. Our user groups are financial supporters of our assets. So I think if we want to keep the user groups here and we want to have things for people to do in town, then we have to do things like this. The thing that is, for me, is that there's no expense involved in this. And it's other than supporting the group itself. So I have any other questions? I have a resolution. It's a bylaw. It'll be coming back shortly. Thank you, Bonnie. We have a bylaw to name members to various committees, and this is one that it's always good to read because it shows that people want to join and volunteer at our community committees. It was moved by Councillor Morgan and seconded by Councillor Mino that bylaw 16-014 being a bylaw to name members to various committees by adding Kate Clark to the Museum Advisory Committee and repealing bylaw 15-008 to be read a first, second, and third time enacted and passed. All in favor? Thank you. And this is a bylaw on the user groups. It was moved by Councillor Kiley and seconded by Councillor Barker that bylaw 16-015 being a bylaw to amend the Town of Kirkland Lake user fees with the addition of complex group fitness room memberships be read a first, second, and third time enacted and passed. All in favor? Thank you. Notices of motion. I see none. Confirmation bylaw was moved by Councillor Barker and seconded by Councillor Kiley that bylaw 16-016 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held February the 6th, 2016 be read a first, second, and third time enacted and passed. All in favor? Thank you. Councillors' reports. Okay, I just have a couple here. At the Police Services Board meeting of yesterday, we welcomed a group of concerned citizens who were concerned of the snowmobiles traveling at excess speed in and around Kirkland Lake. The specific areas being the access points to and from the trails, so right on the perimeters of town. There certainly was a thought and a concern of safety to pedestrians, safety to children, and just general safety in the neighborhood. There was complaints of noise. So at that meeting, it was discussed and what was being done. And we encourage everyone in the community who drives snowmobile to access the trails to please follow the speed limit and be courteous to the pedestrians. And because when we brought this, made Kirkland Lake a snowmobile friendly, and ATV friendly, it was the idea of allowing people to access the trails. It was the idea of making our community here in the north a better place to live. And we certainly still support that, but we still have out there some snowmobile drivers who are exceeding the speed limit. And we ask that they slow down, and we ask that they be concerned for the safety of the young people playing in the area, and to obey the speed limit. Yes, go ahead.
Just to add to that too, there have been concerns with snowmobiles on sidewalks, crossing people's yards, as well as on pathways. One in particular heading to Yigs. It's not meant as a snowmobile trail, it's meant as a walking trail for our residents. So just a reminder to please remain on the appropriate trails when commuting. Thank you.
Thank you. And another announcement is I'm very pleased to say that Northern Ontario Business has acknowledged one of the town's employees. Wilfred Haas was named one of the North's top 5 performers, top 5 Northerners, and Wilf was recognized for his significant contributions to the North. So certainly we're very proud to have you with the town of Kirkland Lake, and we want to congratulate you on this achievement. Yes, Councillor Mino.
Just a quick note on the DSAB, the committee that Councillor Morgan and I represent, that we're going to budgets very shortly in terms of approving a final budget, and we're not the only town that's having financial hardships, and from what I'm gathering around the table is that other small towns who have different OPP costs and so on tagged down to their bills, they're asking for some relief. So I believe we're going to be presenting a motion to probably draw down from the reserves to alleviate the increase or the potential increase of the budget. Right now, it's sitting at about 0.46% increase, but with the drawdown, we could expect the DSAB bill to not increase this year. So hopefully that will be supported at the next meeting.
That's good news, and thanks to the both of you for ensuring that things like that happen with our agencies. We have the adjournment. It was moved by Councillor Kiley and seconded by Councillor Barker that council adjourns its meeting at February the 2nd, 2016. All in favor? Thank you.